What's up, guys? Back to the streaming life. It's been a while since I've taken a weekend off, actually. Usually I just grind through, but I mean, occasionally every now and then I have like a party or something to go to, and I mean, it's nice. It's nice. You get to meet new people, have some fun, and take a bit of a break from poker, although I love this game, so didn't even end up taking a break from it, actually. So we had this house party, and we basically had people bringing in board games and stuff, and someone brought in a poker set. So you know what happens from there, right? Obviously I start playing some poker with everyone. I had like 6 people playing, and I mean, we weren't playing for money. Like, everyone knew I'm like pro, so like the expectation is that I win there. Like, if I lose, I look like a fish, right? It's like, oh, this pro got wrecked by all these like amateurs, like what the hell, right? So anyway, we end up playing. I kind of like lose quite a bunch of my stack at like the start of the first hand. But after that, I kind of just chilled, played my game, although everyone had a bit to drink already. And basically we got heads up. The other guy who was heads up basically like stacked everyone else. He just got really fucking lucky, right? Flops like pairs, straights, 2-pair, and then just calls down the other guys who are drunk and just trying to bluff every single hand. And so he's sitting there with this massive ass stack, and I'm sitting here with like this tiny stack. He's probably got like 3 times my stack, right? But you know, it's heads up. So we end up playing for like an hour, and what happens is I stack him a few times, and then like took a few cheeky lines. So I kind of like got lucky on him, but like we had a hand where I made a flush, I jam it all in against him, and he calls with a straight, and then at some point he kind of starts losing a bunch of his chips, so he's like in a bit of a desperation mood, so he's trying to get it back, he's trying to bluff me off hands and everything, and then he just goes all in a few times on the flop on some of these like drier boards, so I get a bit of a feel for what he's trying to do here. So end up having this hand heads up. I open Jack 4 offsuit from the button, he calls heads up, so pretty standard kind of line that you'd see. Flop comes Jack 5-5, and he jams for like 4x pot on the flop. So at this point I'm like, fuck, I know he's like probably doing this with like way too many bluffs, but do I really want to call off with just top pair? Anyway, so I call, and the board runs out brick, and he shows queen 6 offsuit. So he just had queen high, and he jams 4x pot. It's like, I'm gonna bluff the pro. But yeah, that's how I stacked him, and then it was over, and I kept my dignity, you know, winning as a pro. Despite the game having ridiculous amounts of variance, I came out on top. That's kind of the fun of it. Like, sometimes when you play against people online or even at the casino, you kind of forget how far you've really come in terms of your development, and you go and play a home game with a bunch of random people for no money, and then you're like, okay, a bit of banter here and there, you know, you talk them into trying to bluff you, or you get reads on them, speech play. It's the fun way to do it. and then just crush him. That's my story for the weekend. Here we're just gonna ship it. He doesn't really have jacks or queens, so he has a bunch of flush draws, he has a bunch of 2-pair combinations, and if he does raise, he usually has decent equity, so we don't mind getting it in straight away. So that's a bit about my story. I'm sure you have a bunch of people watching like the Super High Rollerball and shit right now, but didn't get a PokerGo subscription. I'm kind of just like whatevs, kind of just chilling. So how has everyone's weekend been? Deep enough that this is probably cool. But he did raise over an ISO raise, which is a little bit stronger. Obviously calling with pair plus backdoor flush draw. I think we need to turn this into a bluff. I mean, we blocked 1-2 pair, but like the point is like we're pretty much stone cold bottom of our range on that kind of run out, since a lot of our bluffs will, or a lot of our like river range will contain like flush type hands, and I don't think he's checking a flush enough. Like anonymous player pool, so if he's not checking that many flushes on the river compared to what he's supposed to do, then should be pretty profitable. Just folding this turn. Turn, typically I'll barrel some of these, probably favoring the diamond since it allows us to bluff a bit more on certain runouts. And we get raised. Pretty clear fold for me. Nexus, what's up? I play 200 Zoom on Stars. I'm considering your coaching. Okay. I'm familiar with how that game works. I've played a reasonable sample there. I'd say with most like screen name sites, the emphasis is more on learning how to exploit. So can do some database type work for sure if you're interested in that. Click on the coaching tab obviously for a bit more of the coaching details. And if you have PO Solver, or if you're kind of wanting to learn how to use it correctly, then we also have that option. But generally I recommend taking a few sessions from me. Obviously you'll get a better rate on that than if you just take a single coaching session, and you'll find that you'll end up being better equipped to crush those games. This kind of board texture I'm going to be checking a lot more often, especially with top pair type hands, because you basically can't bet 3 streets for value on most runouts, so you can just check back and realize your equity a bit better. And this type of hand can get 1 or 2 streets, so you check back, you delay c-bet turn, you bet river again on a certain runout, and it works pretty well. Does that mean we should have no c-bet range? Well, I mean, you should c-bet because you still have nut advantage. I don't play on stars anymore, but because I can't. I was philophobic on stars, but yeah, most of my progress has probably been like once I started going pro this year, so I haven't really put in a large sample in those games because most of my improvement has been since like start of January, I'd say. But I was still playing like back before Australia quit. It's interesting how that works. Monotone board, going to be checking pretty often here with no club. And just folding, pretty standard. Just can't continue very profitably with that kind of hand. If you're interested in a bit more about like how my stuff works, then definitely, I mean, feel free to read the blog, just click into it and check out some of my YouTube videos. I've posted a bunch of my streams here as well, so you can get a good feel for my game and you can get a good feel for how I'd be able to help you. This is just a call at this stacked up. And generally on this kind of board, I want to challenge my opponent to float quite wide. I mean, you can even size up with this kind of hand, but generally, like, you just want to simplify your strat and make it difficult for them. And a small sizing kind of does that. You could argue though that a larger sizing will be a bit better for that hand since it seems to need protection, but definitely reasonable to go on the smaller side. So this is a small blind. Definitely a significant range advantage on this board with him not having too many combinations of 2-pair hands. No sets. So we can mix in some larger bet sizes though. I wonder if the hydration bot's working today. Or did it take some time off? Okay, well, we don't have too many 9x UTG. We do have a bunch of A6 obviously. I typically will go for a check on some of these paired boards. And then just bet the turn. You can also see bet the flop. Both are pretty reasonable. Here we're just priced in to call off for 20 big blinds once we already put in 11. Just gotta win this flip. Win the flip. There we go. Nice. Off to a good start to the session. I think King X usually would just check this board. You can bet some of them, favoring ones with a diamond of course, and folding this river. Pretty clear fold once we get check raised, but I think flop will be somewhat automatically plus EV given how many overcards he has in his range that we'll have to continue or fold. And either way, like, it's going to be difficult for him to play quite a large part of his range against a C-bet. What's up, got nuts? Bit shorter. Of course, we're gonna play this hand in a pretty straightforward way. Interesting. Interesting. I mean, we can bet some of these turn to second pairs for sure, since we can expect our opponent to check back a bunch of their a6. I mean, not check back a bunch of their a6 as often as they should, and lean towards betting in a vacuum. So, just targeting some second pair type hands, and also the king queen, queen jack portion of his range, as well as king jack. That might also take a checking line. Done with resetting stacks. I mean, maybe I've just forgot to do that today. Or maybe I'm actually just giving deeper stacks play a go for fun. I still think resetting stacks is a really good idea for the majority of players. Okay, interesting. This gives us a strange dynamic because on one hand this guy's with deep, on one hand the preflop raiser is somewhat short. Okay. Small blind flatting range here is somewhat capped. His check back range also somewhat capped. Ideally, I think on a double flush board we'll have some over bets with some 2 pairs and sets, since those hands want some kind of protection. And we can have a few of those combinations. We have 9s, we have 3s, we have 6s. So I don't mind using this kind of hand. Let's have a look at who we've got here. We've got Updog, we've got Dirty Laundry Clean, Big Rooster. I'm not going to mention every single name, but okay, this one we can free bet sometimes at this stack size. Usually at 100 BB you'll probably just fold this, but being deep stacked in position with a suited ace is going to be pretty good. And versus 4-bet, we don't need to be continuing, especially against a more nutted kind of range. 9s here is kind of close. I'd say 9s is a call just because it has that backdoor straight draw potential as well. River, we can probably just ship it, or check raise, or even overbet. We'll bet like this kind of sizing. I mean, I don't like jamming because, like, against an unknown, they'll probably just be folding as a default to a jam. So I'm gonna pick this kind of sizing. Like, they don't really have too many hands that can call down versus a very, very large bet. That said, also we don't get bluffed enough that it warrants a check raise. So, a lot of things to think about there. I'm talking a bit more strat today. So you can make an argument that, well, if you don't check 9s in like at some frequency or very often, then people can just exploit you by value betting very thin using a bet check bet line. But I think it's not too important in an anonymous kind of player pool to be doing that, although I'd definitely adjust if I'd mix in a few checks there if I'm against better players that are capable of exploiting me. 10-9 suited default will just be to fold. I mean, it looks like a pretty hand, but it just doesn't play very well against a 3-bet range out of position. I like a small bet sizing there, and we can use quite a lot of hands to take that kind of line, especially when players out of position tend to c-bet and then to check forward too much on the turn. so protection bet functions pretty well. Man, this is just, it feels so different playing this again after playing online. I mean playing live with a bunch of mates. Just focusing on having a good time rather than actually playing GTO. Hey Neuron, if everyone was forced to use play chips, it would remove the fear of losing money, and I suspect that a large number of nits would not be nitty anymore. In the absence of the psychology behind playing with real money, people would typically be afraid to make sound decisions in big pots. How do you think this would affect the game overall? I suspect that the games would be tougher, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. I think the games would actually be softer because people would be less disciplined. Like, you're gonna get in a lot of situations where people are just gonna make certain plays because there's no consequence, there's no skin in the game. And actually, I've been reading a book by Nassim Taleb, which is why I use that term. And it is called Skin in the Game. And if you want to check that one out, it's a really good read. Kind of talks about this a bit more. I mean, you're probably thinking about it wrong. If you think that, oh, people won't be scared so they'll start playing more aggressive and the games will be tougher, but that's not true. It's more so, as the moment that people don't have anything invested, there's no pain involved with like losing, then that will basically make people try less, make people play less solid. So the games would actually be easier if you were actually like still trying to play really well. But you definitely have to find a different kind of incentive and motivation to even like bother playing well if everything was play chips. Good morning, Neuron. Golden State or Houston? Huh, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Don't really follow sports too much anymore. This is, I'm pretty sure it's a bet call. Like equity wise, given how much is in the pot. Could have been a slight mistake. To CBET wasn't too aware of his stack size, but yeah. This is assuming that some people are just trapping some of their really strong hands and jamming a bunch of draws. Do you think protection and value owning yourself with greater than value owning yourself with the ace 7? It makes the hand like pretty straightforward to play, if you ask me. Like, people just don't really implement enough over bets, or I mean, people don't implement enough check raises once they check on the turn to really make you incentivized to not play a protection style strategy. And I mean, you can always keep your range uncapped by including some nut hands in that sizing as well. And it is incentivized to include some nut hands in that sizing, because if their range is that weak, or if I think it's that weak, then why the hell would I use a large sizing? So that's something to think about. Max exploit these noobs. It's a really long-winded question from Recovering Degen, but you know, I'll answer it because why not? Something to answer, something to talk about. Any good movies to watch? No. We're doing that again, huh? Well, I hope for your sake that Golden State wins then, if you have that much money on it. So yeah, in case you missed it, I mean at this, excuse me, at the start of the stream I was talking about how I was at 21st, someone booked out an Airbnb, and everyone kind of brought some board games for fun, and I mean, we were drinking and someone had a poker set, and then we ended up playing a bit of poker. And I mean, we didn't play for money, but like if we talk about the whole play chips thing, like that the other guy was discussing, this is like a good indicator of like what that kind of stuff is like. So basically, everyone kind of knew I was pro. What that meant was I had a bit of a reputation. So we played like 6 people all together. It was just no money involved or whatever, but we played basically like a shootout kind of thing, like a sit and go, I guess. And it just is funny. Some guy had all the chips because he was just calling down people, like he made the nuts every hand and just called down while the other drunk guys were trying to bluff. And I ended up heads up with him. He had a large amount of stack left, and man, we kept playing. We played for like an hour after, so it was just heads up for a pretty long time. And eventually I stack him, and here's the hand. So I have more chips than him at this point, and he's basically kind of nervous because I've just slowly been taking chips off him. And he starts trying to like bluff me or something, I don't know, like he kept jamming on the flop for like 4x pot. So he won a bunch of chips that way, and then this hand happened. I open heads up with Jack 4 offsuit, he calls, flop comes Jack 5-5, rainbow, and he just donk shoves 4x pot or 3x pot, I can't remember, but something like that. So at that moment I'm like, well, he's been doing this a few times now, he can definitely, like, he's probably doing it way too often for it to be like just value hands in that spot given his frequencies. So I ended up calling, and he showed the majestic Queen Jack offsuit. No, Queen 6 offsuit actually. What am I saying? So yeah, Queen 6 offsuit is the hand he had. And it ran out on the flop and he bricked and I won. GG. Kept my reputation. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Like, he's usually just folding when he checks in that kind of line, unless he has ace king and plans to check call it. Recovering DJ asking a few more questions. It seems as though you're content with playing small pots with small hands and big pots when you have big hands. This is something that you don't have to worry about being exploited when playing zone. Yeah, you just have no idea what I'm doing if you're like thinking about everything in that kind of logic. I mean, that's part of your strategy should be big pot, big hand, right? But there's really a lot more to it than that. There's really a lot more to it. So I'm not really concerned about being exploited, and my strategy is more based around actually just exploiting the other players in the pool. Start checking on the river. Yeah, guys, like when you play with complete like amateurs in that kind of setting, like live as well, you really realize how far you've come in terms of like development. It's like, whoa, it's like a flashback. It's like you go, okay, well, this is how I used to play when I was a massive donk, and I can see all the like biases that these guys have, like all these like fundamental leaks in the game, like all the psychology as well. It's really amazing, and it just shows how like complex and deep this game can get. Two pair on the river, obviously, just gonna be betting. He's not gonna be checking too many two pairs, so we can pick a pretty large sizing. You're playing deeper today, yeah, I am. Been thinking a bit more about what some of the guys have been saying as feedback about my whole like strategy of sitting out. I'm gonna change it slightly, so I'll play up to like 250 BB, and once I get past 250 BB I'll sit out. It still lets me accomplish kind of what I want to do, which is minimize the amount of like complicated situations, right? But I do think like it's probably reasonable for me to play up to 200 BB, even up to 250, so I think it's reasonable if I change my rules slightly and just do it for a while, see how it goes, expose myself to some deep stack play here and there, and then I'll have a bit more of a sample to really think about, okay, is it really a good idea to be sitting out too early, or should I like sit out even earlier, or should I sit out a bit later when I reach a certain stack size? So yeah, I'm gonna sit out when I hit 500 now instead of 400. It could be that maybe the sweet spot is 450. I don't know. But just altering things a little bit. I do think there's probably some kind of edge to be gained. It's just like a bit of a less known edge. But yeah, it could very well be the case that everyone becomes a nit all of a sudden at like a deeper stack. This is a really clear fold. But yeah, this is how we're gonna do it for now. Gonna test it out. I mean, kings with the spade and diamond, I guess you can just bet bigger. And since we're talking about deep stack play, this is a spot where we'll probably be overbetting this kind of hand. Min raise, interesting. I'm not going to be folding, of course, to this sizing. Yeah, I mean, there's enough queen jack offsuit in his range for me to just find the fold on the river. But we will hit enough two pairs on the turn, like getting the odds on the turn that we are getting, we still probably want to be calling. I'm pretty satisfied with the river fold though, knowing that like that particular timing sequence is very rarely bluffed. And even if he was bluffing, I mean, he can, like the main bluffs that he might preempt would be something like maybe king 9, 9, like 10-9 type of hand, 9-8 maybe, I don't know. I'm not gonna try, I don't think it's like even that necessary to go into the ranging process to find the fold. Like, there's so many situations like that where you're just like, alright, well, I don't really need to be taking such a marginal call. that's most likely minus EV. But the turn can be called, I think, given that we can improve at enough of a frequency given our stack size to have like some kind of implied odds, and we might also just be able to show down occasionally. I'm very sure that the guy just had Queen Jack. This guy leads, we're just going to be calling. And wow, this is confusing. Generally against fish, I'll just be taking a aggressive cooldown kind of line in these type of situations, since it's just weighted towards too many marginal hands. I mean, if he has Queen 9 though, he probably has like Queen 6, Queen 7, Queen 5, all the suited combinations of those hands, and he probably even has some flush draws as well, so I'm happy with just calling flop and turn and then probably folding on the river. This is like on the marginal side, but we're gonna complete suited jack. This guy's likely to be a recreational player. Our kick is too weak for us to want to be check raising on this board texture, given that you can have better. I do think that we should be check raising this turn though, given how many combinations of draws he can have in his range. Snap call. Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a fold pretty often on this river, given that that type of sequence is more likely to be weighted towards draws. Hey Neuron, you never make hero calls in zone poker, you only play big pots with big hands, small blah blah blah. I could determine who you were, I could exploit you easily, however you would most likely beat me heads up because I know that blah blah blah. Yeah, whatever mate. Like, I don't get into that, it's just completely irrelevant. It's just like, the whole point of Anonymous is that you need to treat Anonymous differently. Like, Anonymous is a completely different game to... Okay, I'm gonna be checking aces sometimes at the stack size. RNG says to check. And gonna be betting the turn and betting the river. Okay. I'm gonna go with this kind of sizing. I think it's a good idea. And jamming the river. Like, the point is, if you are playing me and I know who you are, like, we're gonna be basically battling it out with a different kind of strategy. There's going to be a lot of adjusting. I might even just start by playing more of a GTO type of strategy if I think you're a decent player, but it's just a different game. So like, in terms of like exploits, there's so much stuff you can go into. Like, there's the sustainability aspect of it that you're concerned about when you're playing. And then there's other aspects that I won't really go into. But that's like one of the key points, and the sustainability of an exploitative line is going to be dependent on whether your opponent can gain vision over your strategy quickly. Through things like hard, through seeing your whole cards, etc. So it's just going to be very different when you're playing with a screen name on your head. But the point is, like, I know why I'm adjusting in most spots against a population tendency, and I know like roughly what equilibrium should be doing anyway in a lot of these situations before I even make the adjustment. I'm always thinking about like, okay, is this the most relevant line for me? For example, here 26 BB. This is a call for sure. Range will be something like 8 plus ace queen. Definitely plus chip EV call. Lose the flip though. No big deal. Danny, thanks for the sub, by the way. Didn't get to that, but very grateful to have you on board as a sub. Here we're just getting it in with ace king suited. And flipping again. Got a bunch of flips today. Unfortunately, it's one of the other ones that we lose. I mean, sometimes you can't get around it. You just gotta gamble, you gotta flip for your stack, and in some cases you win, in some cases you lose. But in the long run it kind of evens out. Don't mind just giving up with no backdoor flush draw. I think our check, given that it is in our check back range, like when we hit a 10 here, we're probably just calling at least once. And the main reason is, yeah, of course, Queen Jack is part of his range. The main reason is that the Broadway region of his range now improves to gut shots on the turn, and a lot of those will be betting. So hands like King Queen, Queen Jack, King Jack. So we have a profitable bluff catch against those, given that we either get to showdown too often on the river, or we can also bluff catch aggressively on a certain run out. But I guess I'd lean towards saying that it's more towards a line of we get to showdown too often because they give up with those types of hands. Load we right back asking. Poker analysis is solid, thanks for that. Keep up the good work, I'm a new streamer, can I ask how and when did you start streaming to get these followers? I mean, I started, like, I'm a coach at Raise Your Edge, so I guess I got some people watching me from there, and then kind of just started growing. I think the main thing is to remain consistent in what you're doing and have a good idea of what you want your stream to look like, so make it something that you would want to watch. That's my hint. If you wouldn't want to watch your own stream, then like, why are you streaming? Like, in some ways this stream is like for me as well as the audience. Like, I don't think of myself all the time as like the guy who's streaming, the guy who's like going with his audience. In many ways I am like an audience of the stream. I'm observing myself as I go through this whole process of playing poker online and sharing it with you guys. Pretty quick hole. I'm not sure if we continue versus sizing, but I assume so. Like calling most pairs. Monotone board and no diamonds in a hand. I'm just gonna give up. Huh. Interesting. I think like given his sizing, he's gonna have a disproportionate amount of ace king in his range. Maybe some king queen as well. Maybe, and occasionally I guess you might run into some queen jack. Now like very clear like bottom of our range kind of spot on the river, and you saw his like marginal like turn size bet, so I think just turning it into a bluff makes a lot of sense. Given like it's actual, like I was actually calling to showdown on certain rivers, but that's not a particular river that I think we have showdown value, so that's why I'm going for a bluff. Hey Neuron, do you ever adjust your strat in zone, or do you stick to something like an algorithm? If the latter, do you get bored easily playing robotic? It's a combination of both. Like poker is really dynamic in nature, so you have a particular board texture and then you won't actually know what you're meant to do, so you kind of have to guess, and then once you've made your guess, you can always check back later. And I mean, you check back and you're on your strategy using a solver of some sort or something, and you're like, okay, given these assumptions, this play is correct, blah blah blah, and that's a fun way to think about it. Yeah, so if we go back to like that hand where I bluff with sevens on the river, there's a lot of different factors going into my bluff, because I'm going through a whole ranging process in my head that you guys can't really process, that I'm trying to explain to you guys. But basically it's a combination of how his turn bet sizing was chosen, as well as how he's checking river on a certain run out, that lends itself towards me having very little bluffs and him having a lot of value hands that are probably just gonna jam the river rather than check. So there's a combination of all that kind of stuff that's going into my decision making process when I make that kind of play. Ripped and skip. Also, sometimes I'm trolling you when I say I can exploit you, low appreciate. Yeah, I mean, I already realized that. I'm just talking shit back because it's fun. It's fun to talk shit, especially when you can back it up. Okay, thanks time frame. About a month now, maybe a bit more than that. Probably heading into 2 actually. Almost 2 months. Whoa. Damn. So yeah, definitely try to be consistent if you're gonna take streaming seriously. Check forward, of course. You guys are totally gonna clip that sevens bluff hand, eh? Sicko knows when to bluff. interesting. This guy pretty much has no flush combinations. Calling a pair here with a back to flush draw. So going for a small raise. He also doesn't really have straights too often. I guess like the main reason for that raise is just because, well, I want some protection against his a6 of hearts, some value, and he's gonna auto call those, and then I'm probably not getting that much value on most runouts anyway, so raising immediately makes a lot of sense. What's your BB per 100 to tabling this? Last month it was something like, yeah, it was like 10 BB per 100. This month I've been on a bit of a downswing, so my overall win rate's probably dropped to something like 8 now. But we're here to get that back up. That's kind of factoring in like the fact that I started and I had less of an idea of what the population was like to begin with, and now I've started to make the correct adjustments. So you can say I'm more used to it and that my win rate is probably going to be higher now than it was, unless everyone that plays this player pool is watching me and trying to do shit to counter me. And you know, that could be a thing. But I'm not too concerned about it. Like, if the player pool starts to adapt their strategy against me, then, or to adapt their strategy in general, then I can make the shift. I'm pretty confident about that. Can't get 3 straights of value, gonna be checking. Protection can be kind of a thing, but you're 4-way, so less relevant. And he raises, I'm just gonna fold this. Don't really need to be continuing such a marginal hand against a bet and a raise, even though it is top pair. Hydration bot. Here we go. Here we go. We're hydrating. It's been a while since I've been on the stream and forgotten to hydrate. It actually came earlier today than it usually does. Like, I guess it's based on like when I start the stream, but last time it came out like, what, 4:05? Thanks for the reminder. Drinking some mineral water today. What is this guy doing? And here we have a call. Again, it's a $2 bet. But, probably folding the river. Yeah, I'm not sure what that guy's doing with the donk on the flop. Non-standard line. Ace Jack there is like very marginal against 3x. I'd probably play as either a 3-bet or fold, but I don't think we need to actually play that hand every single time. It's probably mostly folded given how often it's dominated against UTG range. Okay, this is a small blind flat. So it's going to contain many hands, like some suited broadways and then a bunch of pairs below the jack. And it's going to be missing some nut hands. So I guess the top of his range here is like king jack. Maybe deuces, but that's usually folding. Okay, so this is an interesting run out. We're basically trying to get called by trip jacks, so like queen jack or ace jack, and then maybe some kings. So like king queen type of hand. We're close enough to 500 that I'll sit out and reset my stack. So I think that size probably makes the most sense. Like you don't really want to bet like huge with a straight there, especially with the queen 9, when they can have some ace queen in their range, but not like that many. Wow, there's actually 15 people in the 500 pool. It's growing. Actually, wait, what is my best sizing choice here? it looks a bit weird, but I think pot is actually the best sizing on that board, given how ranges look. Like, we just fold out a ton of equity, and then we have some good runouts to either bluff on or to just show down on. Can you really double barrel turn jack on king jack jack X? I mean, you can, yeah. You're still gonna have some ace jack in your range. You're still gonna have some king jack. You're gonna have jacks. I mean, you might not be mixing ace jack into your strategy, but I am. So I'll have a bit more ace jack than like someone trying to play a more polarized c-bet with the 2/3 strategy, because I realize how the equilibrium looks in that spot is, and given that most people are flatting all those like 5s through 10s types of hands, they need to be calling still versus 2/3 pretty often, so they can fold a bunch of those on the turn, which they should. I think calling once here, given the action. I mean, one thing to note obviously is that in theory some people are meant to have a bit of a leading range there when the jack pairs after flop 2/3, and then maybe they don't, so they're checking quite a lot and then missing like the small frequency of like turn leading, which can kind of strengthen the range. So maybe you want to be a bit more careful about that, but you're probably not running into people that are check raising that either, so you kind of just over realize your equity a bit. Ten's going to be jammed quite often. Small blind versus big blind. It's a hand that you'll typically stack off with from that position, but I'm not really doing that from other positions. Deep, don't need to be calling the offsuit combination on the flop. And here I'm just going to call turn as well with the additional gutter. I think it's okay. If he bets a bit larger than that, then I'm just going to fold. Can maybe argue for a river bluff. Excuse me. But then, I don't know, like, it's somewhat clear that this guy is likely to be a fish, so I don't know if it's getting through enough. And I think we just have enough showdown against a fish given how they're playing their draws. And you often see a bunch of people betting third pair there, even on the flop and turn. When you're playing zones, you ever reach a certain amount and take off the table and reload. I was doing that when I reached 400. I've changed my rules a bit, so that threshold is now 500. So if I get to 500 on a certain table, then I'll reset it. And I think that's a good approach because you don't want to end up playing too deep and then disconnecting and having to deal with all that shit. So he makes it 22, making it like 25.5. I think it's like between 25.5 and 27 is a reasonable sizing to choose from. So it seems like a good give up to me. Obviously there'll be some A6 of diamond flush draws that we could have maybe got to fold, but I just think we're not getting enough folds in this river. And also we're occasionally showing down against some draw type hand. Save money versus quads from not bluffing. You know, with the small flop sizing, I think this is the more common sizing that would be picked in this kind of spot. And then I'm going to be barreling this turn. If you want the results, you're gonna have to go and look at one of the previous streams where I show them. Or just check out my blog. Although I haven't updated in a little bit, I'll be doing an update at the end of the month. So stay tuned for that. Like, theoretically, you're probably meant to turn some of these into a bluff, since you're probably barreling a bunch of no equity hands on the turn, and you get 5s through 9s to go with a fold, but I think given that it's a fish, he's also just going to give up with a bunch of like his suited connector type hands, and then we have a bit of showdown value when he checks. Also against like threes and deuces. But yeah, I've had a bit of a feeling there that maybe we are meant to bluff that. Depends how he plays the river. So yeah, check out the blog for sure. Like, it documents a lot of my progress from when I was a bit more of a fish to when I started getting better at the game. And it really highlights how quickly you can improve at this game. Like, it's just amazing how much progress I've made for myself. even in like the past few months. Like for me, like getting better is a consistent process, but it also has like basically moments of like light bulb moments every now and then where you're just like, whoa, this concept, blah blah blah. I'm gonna increase my win rate so much because of that, but it doesn't come up too often. So like go to the last page if you want a graph, but I think the main thing that you'll learn is I emphasize the mental game a lot, and it's just like huge. You fix your mental game and you just boost your win rate a fuck ton. Fold. Easy fold. Zone is restricted to 2 tables? Yeah. Per stake. So maybe once I'm a bit more rolled, I'll be able to just 4 table zone, play 500, play 1-2. And then I'll have my 4 table setup going. That's the aim for like, at least by end of this year, I should, like even in like the next like 2 months, I should be probably like sufficiently rolled to play a mix of the 2 stakes anyway, but not like in just straight up 500. I think I'm gonna just settle in a bit more gradually. And going to turn this into a bluff. Folding out 7s, 8s, 10s, jacks type of hands. I don't think we actually have showdown value when he checks back the turn, since a lot of people are just gonna bluff with their bluffs. Excuse me. So here, I mean, it's a run out where we could go for a bluff, but I don't think it gets through very often. And then they have hands like 10s, jacks that are going to just call down because we're probably going to try and value bet 8x as well. Try, that is. And I think you can actually value bet 8x there because of, well, how their range is going to look. Since they probably can call us. short stack here makes me not want to free bet this type of hand, since it'll put in some pretty weird spots. Also, the 3x open makes it already a bit closer to a fold. Flower dance. Would you believe me if I said I could play on piano? Because I can. So you can tell, still a little bit sick, but gotten a lot better. Okay. Really unsure if we need to continue this, I guess. Just fold without a heart, call with a heart, keep it simple. People are already on the tighter side compared to like myself when it comes to the in position 3 betting, since for some reason people really enjoy flatting hands. Like, alright, I'm gonna flat, I'm on the button, I'm gonna take my position, and then completely ignore the fact that there are still 2 people behind that can kind of dilute their equity share and also squeeze. Yeah, I can play on piano. Seems like a spot where I want to just check with this kind of top pair. Well, with a 10 I'm calling, but okay, 4s. I would have bet larger for sure. Would have bet larger. He's not deep enough that we need to be calling a gut shot. How do you think you'll do on a 6-handed game with Updog and Broken Stars and 3 viewers? I don't know. I feel like I'd have an edge against, like, especially against 3 viewers. 3-handed, I'm probably better than Updog and Broken, because I played my fair share of it against regs. I know what ranges need to be played in those kind of spots better than guys that are playing anonymous zone. Like, short-handed is actually one of my favorite formats. Like, if they had free-handed zone poker, I would play that for sure. Like, if you ask me where my win rate comes from, it's probably playing short-handed, at least like late positional plays. Like most of my win rate's not going to come from playing UTG and MP, it's going to come from the wider range situations. I'm going to reset this cog. It's just going to get annoying again. And that's also factoring in that I've played a lot of heads up. It'd be fun if we could actually make that happen. Like, I have a lot of confidence when it comes to playing against regs. Because I think, well, like watching people play, I just know that I have an edge. I'm not going to explain where it is, obviously, because they might be watching the stream. But I know I have an edge. I'm very confident in that. Targeting King X on the river with this size. Excuse me. Just keep in mind that at the start of this year, before I actually started playing more in Ignition, I was table starting 200 NL on ACR. And you need to know what you're doing to actually do that profitably. So I basically helped the tables run a bit more, but I mean, no one wanted to play me, so I was like, fuck, I'm just gonna switch sites. Like, seriously, you don't want to play me free-handed? Damn it. Do I play MTTs? I started out playing MTTs. Sit-in goes, and then MTTs, and then now cash. MTTs are fun. They're really, really soft. Most people have no clue what they're doing. But longer hours, less like freedom to structure your routine, especially in Australia, where you kind of have a limit to the amount of sites you can play on. So that's why I'm playing cash. Okay, I think it's getting dark. Getting a little bit dark, not that dark. I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break very shortly and then turn on the lights. Hmm. I don't think we size that big with this particular hand. I think he has a bunch of straights and better two-pair in his range, like King Jack. So we're basically targeting a hand like Ace Jack or King Queen pretty often. Got Grandmaster Lee in the stream. How are you going? Alright, I'm gonna be right back. Right, let's continue. Just gonna fold this. Pretty large bet sizing by him. I don't know if this is like excessive, but I feel like this makes a good check raise. I mean, you can obviously check call it, but I'm just folding here. Don't need to cold for that King Queen off. I think it's already quite marginal. Against min raise, I'll be calling this. Wow. Weird check back. I'm going for the small turn bet and then calling the river. Just because of how ranges will likely look there in that line. I think it'll make it a profitable check call. Two pair and then just be check raising, of course. It's a play I consider pretty standard. So we check call here with two overs, back to flush draw, back to straight draw. Pretty straightforward. Oh, we got Goobus here, helping out with the moderation. Queen 6, even though min raise, excuse me, still sick. Even though min raise, it's a hand that it's gonna be really, really bad. Just not gonna play well enough out of position. Well, that saved us a bit of money. I think we can go for a check raise here. Not too many hands like 9-7 available, obviously some sets possible, but I guess the idea is to just like clean our outs. And I'm going to check this turn, since, well, I mean, okay, he just snaps us. I assume he has like a pretty decent hand then. Checking turn and then just seeing how he plays it before deciding to go for a river bluff. I think you could barrel, but then like the issue is no sets are folding because they have good odds, so then you have to free barrel it. Whereas if you check the turn, he checks back, you have a pretty reasonable spot to bluff the river. 10 on the turn. Typically not going to be barreling this. And I'm going to be folding the river. Since a lot of his Broadway hands get that on the river, so only a few combinations of bluff he can have a like busted flush draw. And there's not really that many of those compared to the type of value hands that you can have. This one's a fold. Some of you keep asking, why the hell are you folding fours in the small blind? Can't you just call? No. Not a very good idea to be playing that hand. And then you have to like construct a whole flatting range and everything to track. It's not worth the EV that you gain. Which is like barely any EV. I like how I have so much variety in this Scream music playlist. Just go from hard style and then back to some Chinese music. Just gonna bet small here multi-way, with this guy likely being a fish. Can maybe induce a check raise as well from some hands. It's a very bad turn for our range. I think we need to be checking pretty often. And I mean, so much of his range has improved, but I'm still gonna just go for a very thin bet. Like, I just think he will call with worse enough, and we kind of like lose less against a queen if we take this kind of lane. You can see at Jack 10. But yeah, like such a marginal, like gross turn spot. But we still get value, we still get value. Never be afraid to thin value bet against a fish. Very interesting. I guess we just want to overbet against like a 7. with this particular combination. I mean, we could bet small to induce a raise, but you know, or we can bet small to target like 2-pair type hands, but I think that's just the line with that specific combo. And then maybe check raise like queen 10. So if you have a queen 10, then you probably check raise that sometimes, since they have more 7x in the range. Man, you can do a lot of stuff with this hand. I don't mind just betting. Like flush draws are gonna call anyway, and then we want to build the pot against them. So yeah, I like my strat. Though. With 10s, you just can't really continue when they go that large. I mean, it's small, but we should still fold. There, I'm just betting against the 6. If you're in a soft game, then a lot of the time you can just be a bit on the nittiest side. No drinking from your syrup bottle in the stream. We're drinking Santa Vittoria mineral water today. So I mean, you can think of that as both an upgrade and a downgrade. Destroy neurons while I'm playing, yeah, that's how we do it. I lose fewer neurons because I don't get as pissed when they suck out, yeah. I think when you play against fish, sometimes you actually end up playing worse afterwards. Like they rub off on you. Sometimes. You start to like look at the player, you're like, maybe there's some merit to this. I'm gonna try it out. Roll deuces. Yeah, that hand was pretty simple for me. It's just equity denial in some ways, not really wanting to call deuces and then have to face additional barrels. Also making a very disguised hand when you do get that. And I don't think it's a good idea to bluff here. I mean, you might get this to fold, but you're blocking some check calls with like flush draw type hands. Although I guess they might just barrel it. Like in general, you just don't want to be bluffing with the backdoor flush draw. Don't need to be calling down there. We're just gonna have so many better hands to do that with. Let's have a look at that one though. Calls small blind. Bet call. I mean, no reason to raise obviously again on the turn. He pretty much 2x pots it on the river. And then shows Jack 3. Like this is a terrible sizing with this hand because we just have so many better 2-pair than he does, so I just really don't like what he's doing there. I'd like some coaching but can't afford that price. There's something to do other than buying packages. There will be soon. There will be soon. Add me on Discord if you're interested. I guess I'll put you on a list of some sort. I'm gonna make a Google form. Basically how it'll work is I'll do like regular group coaching. You can also sub for the giveaway if you want to run good and try and get coaching that way. But I'll set it up probably within the next week. But there'll be a form for a group coaching request or something like that, and basically I'll be giving away, well, not giving away, but I'll be offering the option for you guys to pay 50 an hour and then basically join like 4 other people, and then we'll go through like a topic of some sort, or we can even just do hand reviews. But I'll structure it like this, like I'll go for a topic of your choice, and then other people who are interested in that kind of thing as well can come in. Like if I'll map it out. It's a bit more complicated to figure out the logistics, but that's the idea, like some kind of group coaching that I'll do regularly. I was more thinking of like maybe something like a 50 per month thing, and then adding in like, ooh, this is a weird spot. Can we just cold call? I think so. Like if we cold call, you can't raise anymore, so we just go multi-way. Heat checks. I'm just gonna bet like this kind of sizing. Equity denial, guys. I think that's like the best strat. Damn, this song again. Heard it so many times. Like the RNG on the stream. What haven't we heard? We haven't heard this one, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna try and figure out how I want to do that. Try to make something affordable for you guys, since I realize a lot of you watching this stream are not gonna be able to pay for hourly coaching, even with packages, even though you're getting such a good deal. Just gonna make an even better deal. Like the thing is, if you're trying to get coaching from me and you're taking hourly, you're probably someone already playing 100 NO or 50 NO even. Like I've had people as low as 25 NO pay me hourly for coaching, but those guys are also probably playing some live poker as well. So like the main focus and like type of players I'm trying to work with are people who are already like kind of professional. It sucks that Queen 10 type hands get there as well, and 10-8, and then there's some 2 pairs. I'm just gonna fold this. What's your win rate right now? Right now it's around 8 EVBB per 100. So it was 10 earlier, but been running pretty bad this month. In terms of card distribution anyway. I mean, just tune into some of the other streams. Crazy run bad happening. Why do I rebuy to 100? Well, I want to rebuy to 100 because that's better than playing short stacked. Like you're gonna have a high win rate at 100 BB than at 80 BB. So that's why you want to rebuy when you can. So yeah, as I was saying, like, most people I'm working with generally are already on a certain level and then want to push everything further. I can work with beginners, like I worked with all kinds of people. I can basically teach a baby how to play this game and do it well. What I can't teach though is, I guess I can in some ways, but I can't really teach you how to have the proper mindset and discipline to implement what I teach you. That just, like, that's a limitation of just, I can't really transfer my brain to you and then get you to play the exact same way without like some kind of cognitive dissonance, some kind of doubt until you have the results that you want. That's like a limitation of just the ability of people to implement. This is probably a check on this turn. And just gonna show down on the river. We beat 9s, we beat 7s types of hands. Sorry, I meant reset when you're 200 BB. Win rate, that's the main thing. I'm doing it at 500 now for the most part, like 250 BB I'll reset now. I'm just trying out playing a bit deeper now to see if it's really worth it to do that. I think it might be. This should be a cool versus min raise. And he's not going to have too many offsuit combos of 9x here. He will have a bunch of a6 and broadways, but typically I'll check raise some of these types of hands as a buff, expecting him to overfold a bit. Here with the overcall, this hand's a bit too weak to continue. Doesn't play well multi-way. You could consider 4-betting it, but I'm not too happy about 4-betting that. Why do you think you have better win rate at 100 BB than 80? It's more of just like you win more money when you win a hand, in many ways. And pre-flop mistakes are bigger. Or more significant, I guess. I mean, maybe you can argue that people don't know how to play 80 BB properly, and then you might have a slight edge. But this game is more about post-flop than it is pre-flop, even though pre-flop is important. The majority of mistakes that people make are on the river. So I guess, like, if you want to think about it, maybe you would, if you're like a skilled player, your goal is just to get to the river as easily as you can and then go from there. Here I'm going, like, yeah, I mean, he can have that, sure, but I'm going for the bluff because, well, there's still a bunch of ace-4, ace-3 type of hands that he can have in his range. Well, not ace-4, ace-3, ace-2 type of hands, as well as like 7-6, that might check back. Oh, well, we're actually showing down the 7-6, but then there's the ace-jack, ace-10 as well. So if the type of hands we get to fold are mainly like better ace like ace high type hands. Occasionally they might check back Jack 10. This one's just a fold, but yeah, you get the idea. Sometimes I'm just like talking out of my ass about the combos when they don't matter, but I'll correct myself if I realize I'm doing that. Like some combos, like when you try to range people, sometimes it's just like all over the place. Sometimes it's not even like necessary, I guess. And a bit small. How much volume per month is your goal? I mean, at least 100 hours a month is a good goal, if you ask me. I guess, like, this is really close. The main issue is that this guy's a fish, so I think he might be misplaying some hands this way, and I mean, we have enough equity usually, and he might just let us get to showdown. Okay, well, we kind of got lucky there. There's always the fact that the king can pair, but I mean, we can also make a straight as well. So, I mean, the sizing with ace 10, that makes sense. It's just like, if he has a straight, he's probably not betting so big. Like, he wants a call from a marginal hand, right? Check calling flop. And river, I think we just have to check. We could have gone for a check raise maybe, but I don't think we want to be doing that with 10-9, maybe with like queen 10, king 10. When the top card pairs, we probably want to be checking this. 10-9, it's going to be a mixed frequency call. River against this size. The problem is that we don't really get called by worse if we raise. So, given that's the case, we're just going with the call. I like the small river bet. Really challenges him with some of the ace-king part of his range as well, since we can have broadways as bluffs. Or even like, you could even turn ace-jack or like king-jack and stuff into a bluff. But yeah, like the idea there is you're exploiting people with your bet sizing because you think that they're going to station too wide. Have you accidentally folded aces pre because it's so easy to keep clicking fold pre? Probably. I mean, I might have, but I don't remember doing it on zone so far. Maybe if I'm like playing more tables, then I might accidentally fold. But typically, no. He's not folding an ace, he's not folding 2-pair, he doesn't have many deuces in his range, so I think this is a pretty clear value bet. Like, he's not folding 2-pair with like the king x. So yeah, he called king 3 off. A really bad call pre, by the way, against 2.5. I think that's a really significant mistake. But yeah, Ripton, I like that you're asking questions, but for your own benefit, try to, I know this stream can be like entertainment in some ways, but try to make the questions like be beneficial for you. Like, help yourself out a little, man. You could be asking so many better questions that could help improve your win rate on the stream right now. But you're not making use of that, and instead you're asking me, have I accidentally folded aces pre? It's like I get that that can be a question that you might want to know about, but just realize sometimes there's better things that you can ask. So yeah, here we go. We've got a little bit of a better one. Have you ever dealt with addiction or really bad habits? If so, how did you rid yourself of the bad behavior? Haven't really had any significant issues with addiction, to be honest. Friends calling me. What's up? Streaming right now. Going pretty good, made a few buy-ins. Around 2.5 hours, I think. Maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. So I'm gonna stream for like another 45 minutes. Yeah. I don't know if they can hear that. I'll put you on speaker though. Say it again.
What's up, guys? Crybaby in Dallas. You can follow me on Twitch TV. But Aaron's a good player. You guys should listen to him.
Yeah.
It will definitely improve your game.
For sure.
Alright, so I wish you guys good luck and have fun with the stream.
Right. See you, man.
I'm gonna buy the new Zany emote.
Oh yeah.
You should buy this Zany one too, okay?
Okay.
500 V-Bucks.
Alright.
See ya.
See you. Gonna be folding this one. So that's my mate, Crybaby, on PokerStars. He's gonna be doing a bit of streaming, but he doesn't really stream at the same time as me. I think this one's a close one. This one we can just go with like a 3-bet fold. Like at this stack size, you just wanna like 3-bet really junky blocker type hands. Usually those are best. Tell Kai to hit me on Skype. That I'll let him know. Alright, let's go back to that question. Since I forgot to answer it. So, have I ever dealt with addiction or bad habits? I've definitely dealt with bad habits. I think the way to resolve them is firstly just to bring awareness to it and realize that it's a bad habit, and then once you have that, you can use whatever scientific method you feel like. Obviously, the one that works the best is probably some kind of accountability, or something that like creating a disincentive for a particular habit, or even just supplementing the habit with a good one. But I guess one way to do it is, let's say you have, there's probably software out there, but there's one that would be like, let me think. So basically, let's say there's a charity you really hate, right? Or a cause that you really hate. Basically make a commitment so that if you fail to complete your habit, you have to donate a certain amount of money to that charity. That's something that works. Or it can be like your mate, like you can just be like, hey, if I don't go and work out 3 days a week, then I owe you $200, something like that. Like that will just an amount that will hurt you enough if you lose it, that you would feel stupid about losing it. And that's how you kind of work on fixing a habit. A couple weeks ago you said you'd be down to play Heads Up. Put your money where your mouth is. When are we going? When are we doing this? Lucky, I bust my bankroll, you jealous. What's your biggest downswing? 100 buy-ins? MTTs? Sometimes that shit happens. But obviously I started moving down before I lost 100 buy-ins. It's just like standard bankroll management to move down when you've lost a certain amount. Cash game is probably something like 30 or 40 buy-ins. Hey man, good luck. So you're pretty much entering pots only with a free bet. If you aren't the open raiser, is that a good rule to follow? Not true. I mean, in certain situations I'm flatting, like in the big blind, I'm mostly going to be calling. Same with button, like you can call quite a lot on the button versus an open. But in general, like in other situations, you just want a free bet. Yeah. It's a good simplification. It will make you not end up in so many weird spots. That is if you like construct your range correctly. Basically, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make in poker, especially for beginners, is they just end up in spots where they shouldn't even be in. So it's like, oh, here you're just meant to fold pre, blah blah blah, or here, yeah, you ended up in this spot on the river because you bet the turn when you shouldn't have, or something like that. It's just like, but yeah, very often just you end up in a spot post flop that should never have occurred. And then you ask people like, how do you do this spot? Well, you should never have ended up in that spot. Yeah, just fold pre. And then they're like, but I want to know how to play the river here. It's like, fuck that, dude. Like, you should never have been in this spot. End of discussion. I just hit quads wreck some guy, queens on queen jack, 10-4 queen. He had ace king. What? Did you win the flip pre? Oh wait, the turn. Ah. The magical turn. Must be nice. So yeah, cash, something like 40 buy-ins. Downswing. Good turn for us, I guess. Unless he has 6-7 or a better 2-pair, but doesn't really have 2-pair here. So he either has a set, an overpair type of hand, or something that he's folding. What the fuck? What? 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 Okay, well, that's... I should just end the stream right now, what the fuck? Okay. Man. What is he doing? What is he doing? Let's look at this. Okay. We open, he free bets, we call, pretty standard so far. He bets a bit over half pot, we go for a small raise. The idea here is that he's basically going to be c-betting a ton of broadways, and so like queen jack, king queen, ace king. And we're benefiting from equity denial. Our opponent's going to basically play quite straightforward if he has an overpair, as in he'll just jam it in which case we can fold. So he calls, we turn 2-pair, which is really good for us. If we didn't turn 2-pair, we'd probably check. Okay, this one's interesting, hold on. Board pairs on the turn. We still probably are meant to call some a6, so we're going to call the flush draws. So then we jam and he calls with ace king, which is pretty atrocious. Like, the thing is, he just doesn't have very many combinations of like 9s in his range because he opened from MP. So it's just like a spot where I feel like I should just be calling, since he probably doesn't value bet thin enough. And then like theory wise, like yeah, we probably will just call some of our ace 2 since it doesn't really block any bluffs. I'm not sure what he's doing with 10s, like what's he trying to get us to fold here? That just doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense. Puts me on Jack 9. That's one way to think about it. Do I even have Jack 9 pre-vote? I don't. I definitely don't have Jack 9 pre. I really hope that wasn't you, Grandmaster Lee. I really hope so. I mean, this is just really a bluff. So you can be betting like every single flush in his range there for that sizing. Theory-wise, it might be a call, but not the greatest hand to call with. Okay, how do we get the sizing right? There we go. Sometimes the scroll wheel is just being silly. Sorry, I only shove quads. That's a very nitty strategy. You'd probably be missing a lot of win rate if your value bet threshold was quads plus. Only calls royal flushes. Blank, turn card, very clear overbet. What do you think about taking shots, especially if you're okay with losing the money? But at stakes way high, then I should be playing tournaments especially. Well, I remember doing that. I remember playing a 1k when I wasn't rolled for it, but I sold action, so that helped a lot. In general, like, if you can afford to lose it and it's not affecting your roll, it's like, alright, go for it. But if it is gonna affect you in a big way, then if you lose it, then probably not the best idea. In general though, I think it's just like when you play tournaments, you're basically gonna end up in spots where you're playing for too much money, you're not gonna play your best, and that's the main issue with playing too high. Like that, like at the end of a tournament, like that you're actually rolled for already, you're already playing for quite a large sum of money compared to your typical buy-in, so that just magnifies itself even more when you're playing and shot taking a larger tournament. And because of that, like I think most people end up being negative EV when they're shot taking, unless they have a correct mindset and approach to the game, that they've actually like spent time training before they go and do that. And if you're asking me whether you want to shot take, you probably haven't actually experienced and gone through that kind of thing. So basically just you need to have the mindset to actually do that, and to build it, well, by the time you've built that mindset, you probably already are rolled for pretty healthy tournaments and don't need to be shot taking. But yeah, as I said, generally if you're going to do that, you should be selling action, if people are willing to buy your action, that is. Man, don't feel good about that spot, but we're calling, and now we're folding, even though we have a gutter, just because the board's got a flush draw already on it. Grandmaster Lee. Yeah, I've coached him quite a lot. Can definitely give good feedback on what he's learned. I'm gonna include this in a full bet range some of the time. I mean, it plays like okay out of position, but you can still full bet it. kind of unconventional to use that as a full bet, but part of my range at a low frequency. You know, when you seem to be very disciplined, be a very disciplined guy who prefers thought-provoking questions over silly. However, if Kim Kardashian was laying butt naked behind you and you saw that you had pock aces, what would you do? Only 5 Seems like a pretty easy continue with aces. You just jam and then you go for it. You jam pre and then you turn around. It's so easy, way too easy. Like, obviously you don't fold pre, like you just ship it in. It's the most GTO line. Why not 3-bet 8-7 suited out of small blind versus button? Did you see his sizing? He made it like 3.5, 3.7 or something. So you're probably not adjusting your range to their sizings correctly. Like, you guys should always be adjusting to pre-flop sizings in terms of like figuring out what you want to continue. Otherwise you're just going to play either too little hands or too many hands. Nice. Kings vs 8s. And we make quads. Awesome. It's a shame he didn't have more money. Does your range become more weighted towards value against an open that size or just tighter? Well, I'm going with a linear 3-bet range, so I'm just being tighter as they go larger. From the small blind anyway. Since I'm not doing any of the polarized 3-betting and playing a flatting range in the small blind, I just tighten it up as they make it larger. Pretty straightforward. This is a call with ace-4, ace-5, I think, with the backdoor flush draw anyway. You're still ahead of some jack-10, king-jack type hands, and you have the backdoor flush draw equity and the backdoor gut shot equity as well. pretty clear river check. When you studied poker in the past, how did you go about it? Bit of everything. Bit of everything. Coaching being a significant part of my learning, but also access to stuff like Run It Once and solvers. So like some at each phase. So when I was starting out coaching, and then more towards solvers. Like the thing with the way I work with Grandmaster Lee is, I mean, it's gonna be different to how I work with a lot of other people nowadays, since he is playing live. So we have less hands to go over, but we really go into detail into each hand, and like we can extrapolate other hand histories and spots that he might not be sure of based on a very small sample of hands. So sometimes I'm like, okay, well, he played this hand in a certain way that's telling me that a certain concept is like not being explored enough by him, and then we kind of go into that. So it doesn't really matter that you don't have like that many hands to like review. It's just like, as long as you can show me a hand that you had trouble with, we can go pretty deep with that. Interesting flop lead. I'm going to be calling this, obviously, one of our better aces. Backdoor flush draw as well. I'm going to range him between 7s and 10s when he takes this kind of line pretty often. So against that range, we probably just want to be betting half pot on the river. Might even have king queen occasionally, I don't know. Typically when someone check raises and they check the turn, they're pretty capped. So just betting a small size in and checking back the river. Hand will make it into the flop calling range. Turn bet, I guess, is kind of optional. It still has some showdown value that it retains. So just checking down. Goop says, I was wearing my fish outfit, basically business casual, so people see a skinny Asian kid wearing a suit and try to bluff the shit out of me. It's a good way to do it. Sounds like a weird kind of deal in Ripton. The best way to like get a shot at coaching though is just to subscribe and be one of the first 20 people to do that. And we're getting there, we're getting there. If you play with a young Asian guy, they're almost always aggro. Yeah. Experience from playing live poker for me is literally people... I play like a nit when I'm live compared to how other people are playing, and then I just stack people all the time because they call down too late. Usually it's just like, oh, there's no way I can fold against you. You could be spazzing out. If you play live poker, I definitely recommend to subscribe to Crush Live Poker. I haven't actually used that at all, so I can't really comment on Crush Live Poker, but it probably is worth it if you guys are recommending it. Thanks for the sub. I love Twitch 22. Getting there. We're getting to 20. Queen high, why not bluff it? Why not bluff it against king high and ace high? Going to be calling course with the open ender. Just going to be going for fold. No real need to bluff catch there. Neuron, you should be flying out for WSOP. If I go deep in the main, yeah, I'll fly out if you go deep in the main. If I get a little piece. Guys, stop subbing. Once he gets too big, he won't be able to interact with us small people. Rooting against the subs. It's kind of funny, I guess. In poker, there's a lack of an incentive to have people who are actually teaching solid strat to be known. Like, it's good in order to have access to like different resources, like poker training sites, but I'm just certain that there's no like better alternative in terms of like value for money to like coaching. If you can invest enough money to get a couple lessons in. From someone like myself or another very good poker player. I mean, even if you like talk to like a run at once coach, just getting someone that knows how to teach and also plays at a high level is pretty difficult. But if you can, then man, it's just really worth it. I'll either be wearing a hat that says Neuron Poker Rocks or Neuron Poker Psychics, depending on your attendance. Well, I better show up then, right? I better show up. Not the best river. Like, he can definitely be doing that with a 5 at a pretty high frequency. If you can get us a Raise Your Edge hoodie giveaway, we'd love you. Let's see if we can do that. I'll have a chat with Ben about that one. So we turn a set. I'm going to be going for another value bet here. Interesting. Yeah, I just think we should be raising most of the time. Why bet 75% pot on Queen 6-5 two-tone? Is that a flop where you need to polarize? What kind of hands are you balancing? Lead, shove, river? The river shove. Does it really matter? Like, I don't really want to go into like what kind of hands I shove. But let's just say sometimes you have a hand that you want to bluff with, if your ranges are constructed properly. So on the Queen 6-5, I mean, it's simply just a matter of, there's actually so many factors, but let's just say you have Ace Queen there, right? Ace Queen just wants to bet bigger and build the pot against the vast amount of draws that they can have in their range. Also, if you bet small, well, then they can check raise you a bunch more often than if you bet big. And it's easier to play the hand if the check raise frequency is lower when you have that specific combination. Anyway, like, probably going into too much stuff there, but that's like the basics of it. And then if you really want to like get into detail, well, you basically just run it through Pio Solver with multiple sizing options and stuff, and you'll probably find that Ace Queen specifically usually wants to be betting large compared to small on that board texture. Yeah, I mean, we could go for the river bluff. That bot just made me thirsty. Like, I'm talking about that other hand in a cryptic way, but I just don't really want to get into that one. Generally, when you think your opponent's range is capped, you just shove as many value hands as you can and then include as many bluffs as you can for that sizing. I'm gonna finish this bottle off. Alright. That basically wraps up the stream because it's now 6 o'clock. Calling with the spade. I guess you can also call without the spade, but spade helps. And then this is probably a spot where we block bet river a bunch. And facing a river lead, we're just calling, we can't really raise this. And get called by enough worse hands. Yeah, for sure, like a lot of the spots are just based on Pio. There's so many moving parts to like equilibrium that you can't really explain it to people that quickly. Like it's very much just very deep theory. Tons and tons of reasons why I will make a particular play. Ultimately, it's just because I think the EV is higher, but like trying to explain why the EV is higher is a completely like more like deep thing than just being like, all right, go check it out in Pio, and it's going to be very important, like valuable information that I'm giving away if I go ahead and do that, which is why I can't really give that away. Gotta reserve it for students like Grandmaster Lee. Anyway, see you guys later. Gonna be back again tomorrow, so stay tuned for another stream.